Hello, this is Pauline Jennings. Welcome to Musician Talk. The Northfield Arts Guild is pleased to sponsor Musician Talk this week. For 60 years, the Northfield Arts Guild has worked to inspire our community by developing, supporting, and providing quality, inclusive artistic opportunities. Visit them online to learn more about their programming in visual arts, theater, music, arts education, and so much more at northfieldartsguild.org. A personal note, the Guild has been one of the main reasons I love living in Northfield. They have afforded me opportunities to dive into the things I love most: acting, singing, producing, and teaching. The staff is talented, kind, and generous with their vision and their time. Please support them in any and all ways. The Guild is a gem that helps Northfield shine. My guest today, Meredith Fierke, comes to songwriting by instinct, it seems. She wrote her first song in grade school. Speaking her mind about important issues through her work, her voice, and her guitar also seems to come naturally. That first song was about gas guzzling. Meredith grew up in Northfield, and we're lucky to still have her in town. She has collaborated with Steve McKinstry, another Northfield treasure, since 2009, creating and recording out-of-the-box compositions. About her album, The Procession, the City Pages said, "It hits hard and often with razor-sharp insights and abstract takes on autobiographical subjects, all steeped in a steamy voice." And now, it's time to talk with Meredith Fierke. Hi, Meredith. How are you doing?
I'm doing fine. How are you?
Good. Welcome to Musician Talk.
Well, thank you so much.
It's nice to have you. So I like to start out with asking about what you're doing during this unprecedented time, because I think it's a good thing to get this stuff chronicled. And for musicians and any gig worker, it's a tough time because we don't have work.
Yeah.
And so how are you? Just tell me how you're handling that, what you're doing.
Sure. My situation is very different than, I would say, like a regular gigging musician who relies on their gigs for their income. I have a lot of friends who do that, and they're being very creative about being online now and doing Facebook shows and stuff like that. But for me, I was in a place where I had a full-time job, or probably a more than full-time job, and I had strangely just decided in November to leave that job, to start back into the music. So it was very coincidental that I kind of left this job. I had a couple months, and then, the rumblings started happening about the coronavirus in January, and we were all kind of like, what is that? And so my plan in the beginning was to not do shows right away, to kind of get everything together that I could and finish this long, huge project that I've been working on, and focus on myself and focus on what it is I'm trying to say. So for me, it's serendipitous that the climate is such that everybody has to hunker down, because that's what I was planning on doing anyway. So I feel like, I don't want to say the word lucky because that's crazy, but I feel like it was serendipitous that it happened in this way, and I'm just trying to do the best that I can in this moment and work on the things that I can do and finish the things that I set out to do.
Well, I'm glad you're doing well and that you're healthy and finding ways to enhance your art and yourself. Yeah. So now I will take you way back. You started writing when you were in elementary school. So I just wanted you to take me on the little journey, on your journey of how you started singing, playing guitar, how music came into your life, what it was like at home, all those kind of things.
I will say I don't remember when I started singing, because I just have been doing it. So, I remember when I was probably about 4 or 5, and I was really shy. And I was driving in the car with my mom, and I wanted to sing, but I didn't want her to hear me. So I stuck my head out the window because, like the wind rushes in your ears. And I was singing this song about like the magic of the trees and all that stuff. And then I stuck my head back in, and my mom said, "Oh, that's such a beautiful song." And I remember being so embarrassed that she heard me. Because I, in my little brain, I thought, it's kind of like if you close your eyes, nobody can see you. It was that kind of thing. So that's like my first memory of kind of being actualized, or like having an audience, or having someone respond to something I was doing. So I had always been kind of piecing things together. I was very observant. I really loved the radio. I was really connected to all those songs and what they were doing. And I did the 80s kid thing where you would take your tape recorder and you'd tape this, you'd wait for the song to come on and you'd tape it. And I would go so far probably as to write, like to figure out what they were, okay, so what are these people saying? Like, what are the words? And I'd type them out. And I remember typing out the words on a typewriter. And my first person that I really connected to, much to my parents' like chagrin, was Madonna.
Did you dress like her too?
I did. Fire engine red lipstick. I remember riding my bike to Golden Records and buying all her tapes, and like just like smelling the tapes, like the smell in that room, and like saving up my money, and just and memorizing all those songs and getting really into that. And you grow out of these phases, and as I grew out of her, I still look back and I love those first years. I mean, it's just, it will always be a huge impression on who I am as a person, to be honest.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, that's what we're talking about. We're talking about how music affects us in our lives, and how it matters in our lives. So that's huge. How those first influences, even if you don't become a musician, what those people speak about.
Yeah.
And how they use their voice to talk to their audience, I think can be transformative for anybody, even non-musicians. Yeah. So you were singing from probably in the womb, and and when did you start playing guitar?
Okay. I would say I had a soft start in like 8th grade. I told my dad, like, oh, I'm interested in this. And actually, my first guitar I got was at Ted Vig's shop at Centerfield Music downtown. So I got an acoustic guitar from Ted's shop. And the reason I did that was because I was frustrated because I wanted to be able to sing songs. But it was just, I kept having to go out and find all these people to play for me. Yeah. And I wanted to be able to do it on my own. But it took a long time to actually get into learning guitar. I would say right now I'm not even an expert by any means. It's very utilitarian for me. As a musician, it is a secondary thing. So
it's there to support your singing.
Yeah. Yep.
And you know what? My biggest regret is exactly that.
Oh, really?
That I didn't play piano, or that I didn't continue piano lessons or guitar lessons to play well enough to support my singing. Congratulations. Good on you for doing that and sticking with it.
I still feel, though, like even in the fact that I play a little guitar and I write songs, I still feel like I do need other people to kind of enhance the experience. And But at that time it was kind of like the next step. Particularly
as a songwriter, to have access to some kind of melodic instrument to help you write your songs, I gotta imagine it's a way different thing if you don't have that.
It is.
So you started playing guitar in 8th grade. What else did you do musically growing up, middle school or high school? As far as like, were you in choir? Did you do theater? Where did you sing?
I was in choir for sure. The thing that I loved to do was that, how like schools always have their talent shows. Like that was my thing.
Nice.
I was so impassioned about, like, that was my thing. Like, I have to get into these, because you'd have to audition, and they couldn't let everyone in and all this stuff.
Right.
And I was real serious about it. Like I was like, if I do not do this, my year is ruined. There are some moments where I didn't get in, and I'd be so upset. And I look back and I go, well, maybe it's because of the songs that you chose, because I'd choose like these horrendous, like Crucify, like Tori Amos, like Crucify Myself, or like, I remember once I made my brother play guitar with me to the song Hurt. So it's like literally about injecting drugs in
Yeah.
like 7th grade. And it's like, of course, she's not going to choose you to represent the school for this assembly
Right.
if you're singing about,
Right.
these horrible things.
Oh,
But
that's hilarious.
I know. So any chance I could get to be in front of an audience, I would. And I realize now how lucky that setting is, because it's just like a plug-in audience, of
Right.
all your peers. And
Right.
so it was great experience.
So that's interesting that you brought that up, the fact that you're lucky in how we are when we start out our musical careers, that we have built-in audiences. I've never thought of that before. And you're right. You get that experience with the really good feedback right away when you start.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think back and I go, how unself-conscious I was at that time. And maybe it was because I just wasn't, my brain hadn't developed enough to understand that you could make a fool out of yourself. And you'd have like this 1,000-person audience and you just stand up there and you sing your song. And then everybody cheers because you're like 12, and whether it's bad or good, looking back, it was such an interesting and lovely experience,
Yes. When you're that age, you don't have that judge in your head that you have as you get older. And that actually jazz musicians, they are able to turn that off. They have done studies where they'll hook up sensors to the brain while people are improvising.
Oh, that is so cool.
Yeah, and the judging part of your brain turns off. And so like I can't scat because I cannot turn that part of my brain off in order to do it. I always think, oh, that's not right. That's not the right note. That's not the right. You can't be thinking that and doing something at the same time. And so children, that part of their brain in general is turned off. So they're able to take those risks and play, right? Play make-believe, play.
Yeah.
Yes.
That is so neat. If
you didn't have that turned off, you may have never become a musician because you would have been all the time, whenever you were trying to sing, judging yourself and stopping. Yeah. It would silence you. Yeah.
Well, I would say as I got older, the silencing kind of crept in. I mean, I'm sure that's normal.
Yes.
But yeah, the self-critic kind of shows herself.
Ability to turn that off as an adult, it's something you have to work on, I think.
Yep.
And it's so cool when you can overcome it just by writing songs and putting them out into the world.
Yes.
That's brave. That's brave.
Yes.
Yeah.
I think it is very brave. And, I'll be honest, it's something I've struggled with a lot in the past 10 years about, when am I finished saying what it is that I want to say enough to be able to show it? Or, my fear about what people will think about what it is I'm trying to say, or what they might misinterpret it as. But the interesting thing to me is that once you put it out there, it's not yours anymore, in a way. And the misinterpretations can oftentimes be the best things, but it's scary.
Well, good for you though, that you're doing it and that you're working on that struggle and that you
Definitely
acknowledge that it's there. That's great. And it's a good thing to talk about, I think, because I think all artistic people or any kind of endeavor that you're doing, it's good to hear that other people struggle with doing it and that they do it in spite of that.
On my mirror, I have a little Post-it note and it says, do it despite, because I keep having to remind myself of that. Like, do it even though it feels uncomfortable. Talk to Pauline, even though you might freak out a little bit, or you might say the wrong thing, or have the wrong inflection, or
Right. Thank you, and thank you so much for sharing this. This is precious. Well, what have you found that works?
For me, it's in the approach, and it's about taking what I want to say seriously and honoring it. There's always going to be a reason not to do something, like, I was too young, or I'm too old now, or I'm just a girl, or I'm not pretty enough, or I don't write well enough, or there's always going to be that voice. And so I really just at some point had to make a statement that says, no, we're screw all that and do it anyway.
Meredith, I want to talk about your first song, The Sounding, that we're going to play. And I want to know, I ask the artists that come on here to pick songs that are important to them or pivotal or transformational. So I wanted you to talk about this song in that regard.
This song to me is about sound and what it does to you to me personally as a person and the role it's played in my life. Throughout my life, I've used music as kind of sort of a meditation, singing, you're breathing. A lot of the times when I was anxious and I was a kid, I'd go and sing and I'd feel better.
Nice.
I felt like I was doing something different. So I understand why people might listen to it and be like, this is strange, or this is a little different. There is one note in there that's off. And that to me is like anxiety. It's like that ding.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that you found a way to represent that.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's really cool. And here is The Sounding by Meredith Fierke.
Sound is messy, loaded, dangerous. Through your red hood and your carriage parts, you took a shot in the dark, straight through my heart. It's like a noise I never heard. It's like a noise I never heard. It's like a noise I never heard. Bones of your 3 children, they will float through the water and pour through your heart. Struck you silent, struck you apart. It's like a noise I never heard. It's like a noise I never heard. Like a noise I never heard. It's like a noise I never heard.
listening to Musician Talk on KYMN, and my guest this week is Meredith Fierke. We're just listening to her song called The Sounding, and I love this. I want you to explain the lyrics to me.
The intro to the song says, "The saloon sound is messy and loaded. It's dangerous. Through your lead hood and your carriage parts, you took a shot in the dark, straight through my heart. It's like a noise I've never heard." I was trying to depict something dark, and you take a shot in the dark, and that's the sound as it hits me. The first stanza of the song is me trying to describe what this song is sounding like.
Let's dig into your process a little bit. You're such a singer-songwriter. You sit so squarely in that box, and I'm sorry to box you in. I don't mean to, but that's what you do. You create songs. And so let's walk through that. You start with a poem often, and then what? And then what happens?
So what happens is I'll be struck by something and I'll write it all out. And then I'll shut it and I'll put it away. And I'll come back to it later. And I'll try and look at it with a new eyes, like someone else has written it. And I don't think I am conscious, like I'm telling you this now, but I don't think I'm conscious that I actually do this. But so then I'll read it again. And it's interesting in how the words change over time. I'm trying to get to the heart of what it is I'm trying to say, but it's almost like I don't know it. I'll have like all these phrases and I'll kind of live with them in my head, and I'll repeat them a lot as I'm going throughout the day. And then they'll kind of fall together. This is so strange.
It's actually not strange. It's really great to find out how you do this, how a songwriter does it. And so it's not strange. It's fascinating. That's what it is. It's fascinating. You. Yeah. And I think it's, because you don't write narratives, it is much harder to get to what you're saying, I would think.
I agree with that. And just how before when you were talking about, you're a singer-songwriter, and you said, I'm sorry to put you in that box. That's how I feel about songs. It's like I don't want to decide what it is before it tells me what it is, if that makes sense. I don't want to say, I'm going to write a song about A, B, and C, because that limits it so much. And that also, it would be me telling you what to think. And if I can leave space for you to put yourself into it, that's art to me. That's communication to me. And also, that's how I relate to music.
Let's talk about the second song, because it sounds like there's a big journey surrounding what happened to the song. So why don't you tell us?
Sure. So this song is called The Train Song. Ultimately, a version of it ended up on the City Sampler, I think in 2009.
Congratulations.
Well, thank you.
Huge. That's huge.
A long time ago. So there was a lot of steps that led up to it being on the sampler. But the thing that was interesting to me looking back is how it was kind of that thing where it's like you just say yes. Like I was in that moment of my life where I'm like, whatever happens, you just say yes and you go with it. And so I had sent my album out to this publicist named Krista, and she's the one who had kind of sent it out to all the people. So she sent it to Cities 97 and The Current. And there was a radio show that Jason Nagel had on Cities 97. It was a Minnesota music show. And I remember at one point, Krista or someone told me he was going to play one of my songs on his show, and I was so excited. So I sat there and I listened, and he, for whatever reason, didn't end up playing it. And I was so disappointed. And I was just, and then, you go through that thing where you're like, oh, okay, well, I guess I'm not as good as these other people anyway. So, some time passed, and finally, eventually, Jason talked to Krista and said, well, let's get her up here to play in studio. And I was like, okay. And I decided that let's bring a smaller group up to the Cities 97. So this is when Steve and Dylan and I just first started playing. I don't think we had many rehearsals before we eventually, went up and did this performance in the studio, see where all the famous people played. And then, more time passed, and Jason sent me an email, and he's like, give me a call. And I was like, okay. And I called him, and he said, your song's going to be on the sampler for this year.
Mm,
And don't think I quite understood what he was saying.
sure.
And I was just like, oh, cool. And he was like, no, Meredith, this is really cool. Like his tone was like, yeah, it's cool. Hello. Like, so I was like,
Huge.
okay, all right. And so all that happened. And then, so a bunch of performances and a bunch of interviews and a lot of great experience happened
Yes.
out of that. Terry played drums on a lot of the performances.
Terry
I think we
Van
went
Walker,
on
yeah.
Terry Van Walker, and we went on the Care 11 morning show, and
Oh, cool.
and we played a show in front of Target as people were in line. So looking back, it was like within 1 year, I sat listening to Jason's show, being really upset and disappointed, to being on their most famous publication.
Right.
And I just think, like if you say yes, and if you do these things that are just out of what you feel like are out of your reach, or if you just keep going, you can do some really great things unbeknownst to you. Yeah, it was a really special experience to do that.
That's very cool. Well, with that said, let's take a listen to Train Song.
1, 2, 3, you're calling on me, you're calling me out again. I'm pretty sure I heard it before, and I'll hear you out again. Wait with me, wait for the train, it's coming on through again. My head hangs low and I'll follow you down again. Walk with me, walk to the grave in case your name again. Root for root, lay under you and feel those wounds again. This last June I saw you in the fields of man. Hear that train, it's coming, it's coming for you again. Ooh, ooh.
listening to Pauline Jennings, the host for Musician Talk on KYMN. And my guest this week is Meredith Fierke. We just listened to her song called Train Song. And that was on the Cities 97 sampler in 2009. What a wonderful song. I love it. It's haunting. I love the oohs in there, and you keep coming back to it. It's such a beautiful melody that it got in my head totally, and I was walking around singing it. You're welcome.
The oohs are the train.
Got it.
And
Makes sense.
I used to have an apartment that was, facing the Highway 3 and the trains, and the only window I could open was that window. And so at 3 in the morning, 5 in the morning, I love that it got stuck in your head, because that's, it was kind of this insistent sound.
Exactly. Train Song is on your album called The Procession.
Yes.
And when was that released?
That was released way back in 2008. So it's it's 12 years old now.
That's a blink of an eye. And where can people get the album or any songs?
Yeah, you can find it on iTunes, CD Baby, places like that. I don't have any, I actually don't have any hard copies right now. Okay. So the best place would just be on iTunes.
Electronically. Yeah. Okay, great. Good to know. So we are out of time, but I want to give you the opportunity just to say any last words that come to mind. I
thank people for listening. I am always so surprised and excited when people show an interest. Even you asking me to be on your show, I'm thrilled. So I just want to say thank you, and I hope everyone has a great day, and I hope everyone is staying safe and healthy and working through. Yeah.
Great ending. Thank you so much, Meredith, for being on the show. I love talking to you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much to Meredith for a great conversation today, and thank you so much to all of you out there taking the time to tune into KYMN to listen to Musician Talk. You are appreciated, and I hope you have a terrific evening.